individual players.
Yeah, I think we've been a lot more aggressive this year and creative. We've got our draft party on coming up on Thursday, the 25th of April, and now you've got some cool props. I mean, what player will be drafted first? There's so much chatter about Murray. If he doesn't go to Arizona, though, or if they can trade back, I think there's got to be some value on Nick Bosa. But the one to me that's really intriguing is Dwayne Haskins' draft position over under 5.5. You want to say that do the Giants trade up maybe at number 3 to prevent somebody from getting him? They just paid Eli Manning a $5 million bonus. They need a pass rusher. They need a wide receiver. Do they go a different road? And is Haskins still on the board maybe when Miami drafts later or Washington? So I think that one's kind of interesting as well. But
I do too.
It's fun. It's fun to kind of be able to be more creative and put these props up that I think, especially with our party that night, you're going to see a lot of guests walking around with a draft ticket.
We'll mention a few of them. DK Metcalf, draft position for the draft, 9.5, with the under the over being a good-sized favorite there, minus 185.
Coincidentally enough, Buffalo picks, I believe, number 9. Yeah. And, they although they've spent some money in free agency on John Brown and Cole Beasley, Metcalf, with his body of work and what he did at the Combine, he's drawing a lot of interest, guys.
To me, and this guy, I think Haskins, as you mentioned, is really interesting at 5.5 with the over minus 175. But here's what Drew Lock is one of the most interesting guys to me because he's going to be that player who becomes the big tease because his body of work and some of the mechanical mistakes that he's made on a somewhat regular basis, I think are going to cause some teams to not be all that interested. But his physical tools are so imposing that somebody might just take a shot on him sooner than expected. So you put up 14.5 for his draft position. The under is the favorite, minus 240. I like the under in that. I think, and that's not an opinion on Locke as much as it's an opinion that some team in the borderline top 10 or just outside the top 10 is going to look at that physical package and say, you know what, we got to take a chance here.
Well, I think, we've talked about it. It's such a quarterback-driven league. We saw, a couple years ago, teams trade up for Goff and Wentz. We saw the Bears flip-flop one spot for Mitchell Trubisky. Saw teams move up and down the draft board for Mahomes and for Watson. And, it's all about the quarterback. And you look at Miami, who just signed some Fitzmagic as, to a $11 million 2-year deal. Do they take a chance on maybe a Drew Lock? If Haskins drops, do they look at him? I think Denver, I think Elway is still looking to get a quarterback. Denver's in that mix. Potentially Washington's in that mix. So I think there's a lot of different, teams, again, being a quarterback-driven league that could move up or down that draft board to potentially make that move.
Chuck, how much have you seen the increase in handle from the last couple years that we've been able to just bet the draft picks? This is something that we couldn't do just a few years ago.
No, I mean, now that you can add these to the mix, it's so great. I mean, you see an uptick in handle every year. It's so much fun for us to be able to add these and put them up. Guests love them. They're water cooler chatter, but they're fun. I mean, there's so much information out there, so many mocks out there. It just has become an added, element that we can add to our menu for an event like this, which has become, a big event.
Now, for those who might not feel like they're experts enough on the draft, that's okay because you've got some regular season player props up on players we all know about that have changed teams. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham. Let's talk about some of the props on those guys, Chuck.
These were so much fun. I mean, we started throwing some things around last week when the movement happened with these guys. And, I mean, you think about Beckham, Brown, and Bell, I mean, the impact that they're going to have on their teams. We thought it'd be great to put them up, and with Baker, we have some with Baker Mayfield, with Nick Foles. These are all just really good props. But you think about Le'Veon Bell, and he's going to be a big part of that offense. I mean, the receivers in New York are still a little bit questionable. He's a guy that can be used out of the backfield and run the ball a lot. He had the year off. It's going to be interesting. Beckham, I think Beckham's is interesting because, I think 3 of the last 5 years he's had double-digit touchdowns. And one of those years was hurt, and last year he didn't play the entire season. And we know that the problems the Giants' offense had. On the flip side, that's not going to be a problem, I don't think, in Cleveland. The problem is that you've got Nick Chubb, you've got Kareem Hunt, you've got Duke Johnson, you've got Callaway, you've got Jarvis Landry, and Njoku. Is there enough ball to go around to maybe get him double-digit touchdowns? And I think in Antonio Brown's case, he's going to be maybe the only guy there, although they pick up Williams, and I think they've got some young receivers. They may even address that in the draft. I think Brown's going to be the main target, where I think in Cleveland they spread the ball out a little bit more. But that's what makes it fun, because only time will tell once the season starts, how the action is on these guys. But the props have been received really, really well, and good handle on these so far, guys.
Chuck, I looked at these when Dave sent them to me yesterday, and a couple that jumped out to me. I know the immediate knee-jerk reaction with Baker Mayfield in the passing yards is going to be to go over the total. Now he's got a weapon, sure, and everybody saw what he did last year. But I'm going to put this into the mix. I'm going to say no, and I'm going to go to the under. And I'm going to tell you why. A lot of the yardage that Baker got last year, the Browns were coming from behind and had to throw the football a lot. They are a much improved team. And with that said, they're going to be much more balanced offensively, especially if they have leads in the second half, absolutely, which they didn't have last year.
And they've got good running backs.
And they got the running backs where they're going to be protecting leads. That one I like Baker under.
Don't forget, though, he only started 13 games last year.
Right.
And I understand that, Marco, and I truly can see that occurring. However, he's got that gunslinger mentality. I think with the offense that they have, they are still going to be a pass-first team, even with Chubb and Hunt. And he overthrew a lot of guys. They didn't have – Callaway was a very young receiver. They picked up Perryman last year, was a very young receiver. Landry's more of the slot guy. They didn't have a lot of guys that could maybe stretch the field and create those big plays and yardage. With Beckham, they do. So I think you can make a case either way, but I think that's what's great is that, we can talk about it, and I think everyone who grabs one of these prop sheets is going to kind of look at the same thing. They're going to look at, what do we think is a good number, and we tried to put up a good number that hopefully will draw a good two-way action.
And those numbers are for passing yards for Baker Mayfield, 4,250.5. And on the touchdown passes, 30.5. I kind of like that. The yardage, I don't know. The touchdown passes, the way teams now throw the ball inside the 5-yard line, I think he's going well over 30.5 with the offensive capabilities. I think that could be 35 or 36.
I could see that as well. We went back and forth. I think, again, last year starting 13 games. I think he threw, 26 or 27 last year. I think the key, though, is Marco touched on it, too. When they have a lead, though, and they were throwing a lot last year. I remember one game late in the season. I think it might have been week 16. He had, I think, 3 touchdown passes from within the 5-yard line. But I think with Chubb having more time under his belt, and then Hunt the second half of the season, and if they are playing for more with the lead, he may not be throwing as much. But again, that's what makes it so fun, guys, is that with a team like Cleveland now, and it's hard to believe that we're actually talking about Cleveland for so long.
Yeah, well,
that offense has the potential to be kind of fun, and they went out and picked up Livio Vernon and Richardson on defense to help that defense as well. So they're going to be fun, but I think it's a perfect time for them. You look at Baltimore with who they lost on defense, kind of a transition with Lamar Jackson. I think you look at Pittsburgh, no Bell, no Brown. Cincinnati, total rebuild, I would think at this point. Let Vontaze Burkhead go today. I think it's a perfect opportunity for this young Cleveland team to win the AFC North.
How hard was it to create the number on Le'Veon Bell for the rushing yards? Because he's going from one of the best offensive lines in football to arguably not one of the best for sure.
That's a nice diplomatic way of saying it.
The Jets were 26th in running the football last year, yardage-wise. And Le'Veon Bell is that unique runner that does that delayed, stutter step.
Right, the stutter step, right.
Yeah,
yep.
And that's good when you've got an offensive line that can open holes. But if you give the defense an extra second when you're doing that dance in the backfield and you don't have a good offensive line, I think Le'Veon Bell's going to have a rude awakening this year.
Well, I think, we looked at what Crowell and McGuire and some of the other running backs did for the Jets last year. Looked at what Bell averaged, of course, a different Pittsburgh team, but to get an idea of his touches. The Jets have let Crowell go. They didn't go out and spend all this money on Le'Veon Bell not to pound and pound and pound the rock. And I think you look at the progression and the maturity that second-year quarterbacks made. When you saw what Drew Brees did in year 2 and what Goff did in year 2 and Wentz, and they're looking for some of the same things from Darnold. So we took all those things into consideration. But again, the bettors will let us know if these numbers are too high or too low. But we did factor a number of different things in for all these props when we looked at them. And we had some of the same discussions that the three of us are having right now.
Big discussion tomorrow night will be the seminar talking about the NCAA tournament at Sunset Station at Club Madrid. Again, give us the rundown on that and on Last Man Standing, Chuck.
Last man standing, real quick, guys. You have till 9 a.m. on Thursday to sign up. As long as you're signed up by that time, you can still turn your play in before any game you choose on that day. The format is just like the tournament. You win, and you keep moving on. There's 10 total days. It's a $25 entry fee. 4 entries get you the 5th one free, $50,000 prize. It's a great contest. I think if you're a serious handicapper and love the tournament, I think it's terrific. Again, plenty of time. Get signed up. $50,000 guaranteed. And then tomorrow night, our tip-off to the tourney. I think it's our 4th year that we're doing our tip-off to the tourney seminar. Myself and Brian Blessing host. Bernie Fratto, Bruce Marshall, Hammer and Hank Goldberg, Andy Isco. A lot of other media guys will be out as well. It's free. It's open to the public. It starts at 6 o'clock. Pizza, pop, props we'll be talking about. So come on out and have some fun, guys. I think there's a lot of cool things as we all get ready for the tournament.
And one more thing, by the way, if you haven't signed up for STN yet and got your mobile device rolling, there's free money as a bonus when you sign up for a new account.
Right, up to $50 you can earn, and we love when the guests come out here and have fun. And because of the crowds and the atmosphere of the tournament, books will be packed. But you can have your STN mobile, and you can still play from the comfort of the book while you're rooting for or against with about 300 or 400 of your closest friends. So, and if you can't make it here, get signed up. And this way, with all the different start times and all the other tournaments that are going on, and baseball right around the corner, these props that are up, you can play from the comfort of wherever you are. So, STN mobile, get signed up today, both for race and sports. You got a lot of big Derby prep races coming up as well, guys, on the race side.
Yeah, and you can also might be able to bet on Marco's horse that's running on a day.
Unfortunately, nobody carries the Meadows out here.
Okay. All right. Well, nice try.
Yeah.
The horse is going to go off a big favorite anyway, so it's not a good value bet. All right. Good stuff, Chuck. We'll talk to you soon, and have a great time tomorrow night at the seminar.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Good stuff with Chuck Esposito, and he is just so knowledgeable in the NFL. Those are fun props.
Yeah, I mean, bring them out right now. Looking at them, like I said, a couple of those jumped out at me, and I'm going to dig a little deeper. And they're taking a $2,000 limit on it, so it's not like these are just novelty props.
No,
they're taking some nice money on them.
If you are a believer in the Cleveland Browns and their offense this year, with obviously one of the most dynamic receivers in the NFL coming over, and a second year for a quarterback who looked like the sky's the limit last season, I mean, you might want to take a shot with those overs and see what happens. I'm not saying that's the way to do it, but if you're a Browns fan and you can't wait for the season to start, you don't have to wait. Get down to
I know two of them in town.
Yeah.
Ralph and Brian been waiting a long time.
When we come back, we will get to our 4 at 4, and we'll also do another baseball preview. Today's look at the San Francisco Giants.
The Las Vegas Sportsline.
When it comes to dependability in car batteries, no one beats Interstate Batteries. Interstate Batteries has been providing outrageously dependable starting power for over 65 years. With over 200,000 dealers nationwide, there's one near you. Just click on interstatebatteries.com.
Come watch exciting hockey action action at Pizza Rock inside of Green Valley Ranch Hotel and Casino. Score $4 meatballs, $5 one-topping personal pizzas, and $4 well, wine, and 32-ounce PBRs. Hockey is at Pizza Rock inside of Green Valley Ranch every week.
Attention, if you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down this year by sending out hearts